A 6-gram mushroom trip report, posted July 3rd, 2023, by Reddit user BigBadVlad1 on r/trip reports. I just recently stumbled upon the Reddit world of psychedelics, and I thought I would make a post about a crazy trip I did last summer. I am by no means an experienced psychedelics user, in fact, quite the opposite. I've only done 3 trips. A little lead up. I was spending a few days in a cabin with some friends in the mountains. One of my friends had brought half an ounce of APE mushrooms. At this point in time, I had only had one very weak psychedelic experience on about 4 grams. I have now come to realize that they were very old. At the time, I didn't realize just how much more potent APE is compared to the other strains. So in picking a dosage with my friend, I'd figured I'd do somewhere in the 5 to 6 gram range since I wanted something more intense than last time. My friend, also an inexperienced psychedelics user, had tried the mushrooms a few days prior and broken through on a 5 to 6 gram dosage, so I thought I was in for a fun ride. Oh boy, was I wrong. The trip. Unlike my other experiences, the escalation of the trip was as crazy as you might imagine. Within 30 minutes, I was full-blown tripping, ridiculous visuals, and already trapped in crazy mind loops. By 1 hour, my best estimation, I was completely out of it, lost in time and space. Past the 1 hour mark, I have no legitimate sense of time about the trip since it felt like an eternity. The visuals kicked into another gear. My vision shifted focus, as if it was like I was perceiving another reality, a psychedelic realm, if you will. Oddly enough, my visuals were not fractals, but instead just swirls beyond comprehension. For most of my trip, I was sitting in a lawn chair on the porch in the cabin. I sat in the chair for what felt like eons. I was completely alone with my own thoughts. The theme of the trip was worldly connection. I remember scrolling through my phone on Snapchat looking at the names of all my friends. I remember feeling pure joy while doing so, but as I scrolled, I let them go. My mind began to slowly strip itself of worldly attachments as if I was about to transcend. Throughout the whole trip, I had zero control, and I was scared out of my mind. But up until this point, everything was still somewhat positive and forward-moving as I got closer to transcending reality. Then, my final worldly attachment, my mom. My mom and I have a very deep spiritual bond to the point where we can borderline communicate telepathically. Somewhere in the process of letting her go, my body and my mind seized. Apparently, I called her and talked to her on the phone, which was soothing during such an intense trip, but the damage had already been done. From this point, my trip went south. I had already let go of all my worldly attachments, yet my falter had blocked my transcendence or breakthrough. I was completely alone in this weird psychedelic realm. I remember staring out into the trees and thinking, this is it. I'm stuck here alone in this abyss for all of eternity. I didn't think I could go back, and I didn't know how to go forward. I was just stuck for what felt like a lifetime. Eventually, probably as I was coming down off my peak, I decided that even death was better than my psychedelic prison. I closed my eyes and I followed the light. I died right there in that chair. I came to complete terms with death and consciously let myself go. And after that happened, I don't know what happened to me for a while. I just remember suddenly seeing a beautiful white light. My body surged with euphoria and pure joy as I was born again into my bed. I don't know how I got there. When I opened my eyes, I now had some sense of reality. I knew where I was, and I began to essentially cry from the pure joy of knowing that I was still alive. I was still pretty out of it, and I wandered into the main part of the cabin with the rest of my buddies. Apparently, I had freaked them out a bit. I somehow had this huge wad of half chewed up bubblegum in my hand. One of my friends shouted, "Get him away from me." Apparently, I had kinda snuggled up to him on the couch, but I was in a really gross state. At this point, my ego kinda grabbed hold of me again, and I felt massively embarrassed. I really don't know what I had done, but I thought it was bad, and I had somehow scared the neighbors. I saw a car pull in that almost looked like a cop car, and I kinda freaked out and hid in the bathroom for about an hour just gathering myself. I remember staring into the mirror, basically letting my ego take over again, grounding myself since the walls and floors were still moving like crazy. Eventually, I gathered my thoughts as I was completely coming down, and I rejoined my friends and apologized to them for anything I had done. That's pretty much the end of the story. My mind is definitely blocking out a lot of the details from my peak because it was mildly traumatic at the time. All in all, now that I have a better understanding of psychedelics, I consider myself kinda lucky that I didn't do any harm to my mental health. I have definitely never felt the same after that trip, and I went through a small awakening afterwards. One major message I got from the trip was just how artificial human existence can be. So many of us just kinda go through the motions. I am now completely convinced of the existence of NPCs. Some of my friends looked like reptilian creatures throughout the trip, while others looked majestic and were glowing. That's not to say I believe anyone is below anyone else, just that everyone is at a different stage energetically, and that some people are here for different reasons than others. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this trip and any advice for the future, as I plan on doing another APE trip soon. This time, maybe 3.5 grams.